Welcome to the Business Advocates for Carbon Pricing Conference. My name is Mark Reynolds. I'm Citizens Climate Lobby's Executive Director, and I'll be kicking off today's call. I want to, first of all, thank our Business Climate Leaders team, not just for the work on putting this event together, but the years of work of building support for businesses for support and pricing carbon. You know, most of the people who are joining this webinar have been in meetings with members of Congress. And one of the things they regularly ask us is what do the job creators say about this in my district? And you have done the really work to make sure that district by district is represented by businesses who are in support of carbon pricing. And thank you for all that good work. What's going to happen today is in just a moment, I'll be introducing Representative Scott Peters of California, who, by the way, is my member of Congress. Happy to have my member of Congress speaking today. Then we'll have a panel of business leaders who will speak about their experience. Before that, we'll have a legislative update from Dr. Danny Richter, and then we'll have a business panel. After the business panel, we'll hear about some advocacy options, and we'll do all of that and end by 3 o'clock East Coast time. 2 weeks ago, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act was reintroduced. We love that bill. We love it because it is the best tool to get us to net zero emissions by 2050. We also love that it will make clean energy affordable. You know, all Americans want clean energy. They just think it's out of their reach. How it occurs to them is that they can't afford a Tesla. So while they want clean energy, they just don't know that we could get to a place where that will be affordable for them. We also like what it does for people's health. You know, it's not just the reduction in emissions we're looking from this bill, but the reduction in mercury and sulfur, and particularly the people on frontline communities who've been harmed more than most people. The benefits it'll have to them is going to be great for their health. And last, we like that it puts money in people's pockets with no restrictions on how they spend it. This last Tuesday, we had a kickoff press conference with the lead sponsors, one of whom is with us today, Representative Scott Peters. As I said, I'm happy to let Representative Peters know that I live in the district and that I have voted for you in every election and been happy to do so. Now, in the last election cycle, I ran into an old acquaintance who said that she was going to primary you because it was shameful that you weren't on the Green New Deal. So I said, Nancy, you've got this 100% wrong. Scott Peters is probably the single most important person on climate change in the Congress. And here's some of the things I told her about that. One is you were early on the Climate Solutions Caucus. 2, you were early on the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, the first time it was introduced, and then this time, and that's why one of your lead sponsors. But here was my main point. We see every member of the House 2 to 3 times. And so we see the meeting notes on what members of Congress say. And we ask them who they work with across the aisle, and who Republicans tell us they can work with is Representative Scott Peters. So it's one thing to talk about bipartisanship. It's an entirely different thing to actually represent it. And I think that's one of the things that we're so happy about is Representative Peters consistently represents an approach that's about solving big problems, not scoring partisan points. So Representative Peters, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mark. Unfortunately, you didn't really talk Nancy out of her primary.
I did not.
But I really appreciate you saying that. And, you know, it's not everyone who dreams of bipartisanship on this issue, as you know. So I really appreciate the chance to thank you for the kind comments and for your support and for your vote. You know, we have a lot of work to do. I would just say about bipartisanship that this United States of America has never solved any big problem, whether it's sending someone to the moon or winning a world war or beating back a pandemic with one political party. And it just baffles me that we think that we can do this amazing thing with just one political party. We're just going to do it through things like reconciliation, that we're going to push aside the Republicans for a while we have control and hope we fix it before they get back in power. And so I think that the fee and dividend idea is a really fundamental issue in terms of our climate policy. And I think it replaces the other policies, and it doesn't work for everything. I think, for instance, on things like methane's so cheap to flare off, we're not going to be able to build in a price system that's going to keep people from doing that. We're going to have to invest in research directly. I think that we have to research a lot of new technologies. I had a bill passed at the end of last year that's going to fund research into direct air capture and carbon capture and utilization and sequestration. That's going to be important for us to do. We have a lot of foreign policy challenges in terms of reaching out to other countries to stop deforestation and to make sure that the right kind of energy is deployed as other countries develop and gain wealth. But I don't think that we can solve this problem without a price on carbon. And let me tell you a few reasons. When I talked to the Ways and Means Committee recently, I testified, and you can certainly see that on YouTube if you want. But basically, it's the right climate incentive policy. It's not something that I say. It's what economists say. The National Academy of Sciences, Janet Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury, and it makes a lot of sense. I support the Fee and Dividend Act. I think it doesn't really doesn't raise taxes on anybody. That's why I think a lot of the Republicans, particularly the used to be elected Republicans, that used to be in office Republicans, support it. But you could use it as a pay for, where we've historically, we've just assumed we'll raise the gasoline tax to pay for roads and bridges. That is really a carbon tax. It's just not a very efficient one. What we would do is, with a carbon fee, is move that upstream. It would still be an energy levy, but it would provide an incentive for every single actor, every single person making a decision about energy, from the biggest corporation to individual consumers, to move away from climate pollution type energy. And I think that's going to be really important. And I don't think we do ourselves any favors by suggesting to some people in the country that climate change won't have an effect on them. I think it's going to have an effect on everyone. And I think it's sort of disrespectful and not really honest to say that we're all going to have to pitch in. But the other thing about a fee and dividend is that you can make it equitable. You can make it so that people who can't afford additional energy prices, either because of their economic level, or because they've invested a huge amount of money in capital equipment for farming, you could also buffer that impact on them economically while you still retain that important incentive. I think we should not lose sight of also the effect of this on business and trade. One of the most significant things that's happened recently in business in terms of the environment was France rejected a $7 billion 20-year deal between Brownsville, Texas, and France for liquefied natural gas. Why did they do that? Because our natural gas is considered dirty because we don't sweep up the methane. Well, the same thing's happening with respect to carbon fees. When we went to COP25 in Madrid, we heard the same thing from scientists and heads of state, was that we need a price on carbon. Europe's going to deploy that, and now all of a sudden, when we talk about trading with Europe, we're facing the possibility that they could impose tariffs on us for not treating carbon the same way that they do. And there's going to be a real business reason to pay attention to this pretty soon, this particular thing. But also, it's the most politically feasible climate strategy. We've lost sight of the fact that the American Petroleum Institute, of all people, came out and said we should work on a fee on carbon. Mitt Romney has spoke in favor of the Climate Leadership Council's bipartisan roadmap. Obviously, that's something that's supported by Republicans. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has come out and said that it's in favor of a market-based approach. We know that the Business Roundtable has made the same kinds of comments. So when you're looking for a political path, it's hard to see many other climate initiatives that enjoy the same support from both sides of the aisle. It's hard to see an argument against the merits of this policy, because scientists and economists have roundly supported this as, if it's not the most important component of a climate strategy, it's certainly an indispensable one. And so I think we need to pursue it, and now's the time. The Biden administration is talking about two things. One is infrastructure and how to pay for it. And two is how to fix the tax system. I think there were some mistakes made personally by the Republicans in 2017. But one opportunity, however you look at it, is to talk about this user fee, the carbon fee, as part of the discussion. I was on Fox with Neil Cavuto the other day talking about infrastructure. And I said, he said, why do you think Biden says he's skeptical about Republicans working together with Democrats? I said there were two reasons. One is every time President Trump had an infrastructure week, we never knew what he was talking about. But the other thing is that Republicans all signed a blood oath around the time I came into Congress in 2013 that they would not let anyone's taxes be raised for any reason. And Mr. Cavuto pointed out that, well, Republicans don't consider user fees taxes for that purpose. And that, again, means we have an opportunity to address this issue in a bipartisan way. You have Republicans saying that they're open to this. Let's not lose this moment. And I'm very much excited about President Biden being in office. I was particularly partial to him. I didn't know he could win because at one point his campaign, it seemed like they had about $20 to their name. But lo and behold, here you have a man who's not in any way a political conservative, but is experienced in bipartisanship, who was with us at a time when Congress worked, when people achieved compromises and then thank the other side for the work that they did. You hear someone say, well, I didn't get everything I wanted, but the person I worked with was a person of integrity. We worked hard. We both got something out of it. You'll move forward. You heard Ted Kennedy say things like, I'm going to get half a loaf today and come back next week for the other half. That was part of the norm. And today we're just not in that mindset. And I don't think it's a matter of willingness as much as it is a matter of muscle memory and competence. In that, we just don't, since 2010, when the Tea Party came in, the goal has not been to come together to pass bipartisan legislation. And many of the staffers that we've hired who are in their 20s, there's so many of them, as you know, are young, have only been around when the name of the game was to beat the heck out of the other party. So we have a challenge before us, but we have a real opportunity if we come to it. And I think President Biden is one who he needs to be convinced that this should be part of the strategy. But your advocacy is very important to this. I was very proud to be on the bill last week that Ted Deutsch introduced. We've had versions of this that have been bipartisan in the past, and I'm sure we could accommodate that once again and hope that we will. So, Mark, I'm happy to take a couple questions if there's time for that, if the format allows it. But I appreciate the chance to be with you, and really want to thank everyone in the organization for what a great impact you've made. And I can even tell you that that when I've mentioned this bill, sometimes people say, "Oh, that's that Citizens Climate Lobby. They're all over me to get in this." And so you stay in their faces because we need your help. But people know who you are, and your outreach has been noticed, and it's had an impact.
Great. And Kyle, do we have time for questions, Kyle?
I think we have time for one or two.
Okay, cool. And are we picking those up in the chat, or are we offering those?
I probably threw you a curveball.
One moment,
okay.
We're going to pull from the chat.
Okay, nice.
So, Congressman, one recurring question, and you made reference to this a little bit in your comments, is what do you think that the likelihood is that a carbon price would be a part of an infrastructure package?
Well, I think, to President Biden's credit, I think he's honestly said he wants input. He expects the deal to change. And I've expressed to them that it's hard for me to imagine supporting a package that doesn't include this. I'm just one vote, but I'm from San Diego, California. I don't come to Washington, D.C. for the weather. I'm really trying to to work on representing my constituents and saving the planet from destruction. I don't think we get there without a carbon tax or carbon price. And so I'm pretty firm on holding my ground. But other people need to catch that fire too. And what we need to understand is that this is an indispensable part of a climate strategy, and this is the moment. You've got a number of openings, and there's ways we could amend this to make sure that it fits into one of those openings, and we should do that now. So I'm pretty optimistic about it, although I don't think it will be. I think he's got a lot of political advisors who are telling him not to do this, and I think we should really be insistent on it. And now's really the time for us to double down and make sure that we don't lose this moment. We have about till Memorial Day to see this thing finished off. And by then there's a lot of pressure to choose yes or no. So let's make sure that this is part of the yes.
Great. Thank you so much. I think our next person up is our Vice President of Government Affairs, but I think he thinks you just did about 3/4 of his work. So
Okay.
Appreciate that so much.
Good. Well, I really, again, appreciate everybody, and thanks. Hang in there, keep going, and let's make this happen.
Great. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks, Mark.